For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas. Just 2 days after the presidents of Ukraine and Russia agreed to work toward a ceasefire, tensions between the two countries are rising again with fresh accusations from Ukrainian officials. Kiev accused Russian troops of entering its territory after a rebel leader admitted that there were Russian volunteers among their ranks. At least one Ukrainian leader has called for martial law to be declared and for Ukraine to request foreign military assistance. Meanwhile, hundreds of people rallied in Kiev demanding resignation of President Petro Poroshenko and the defense minister over poor support and equipment for soldiers. As the truce between Israel and Palestinians continues to hold, both sides are claiming victory. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu suggests that his country did not accept any of Hamas's demands. Hamas leaders claim that the ceasefire marks a defeat for Israel, forcing Israel to remove its troops, opening Gaza's blockaded crossings with Israel and Egypt, and widening Gaza's fishing zone. During this second day of calm, we go to our correspondent Nor Harazin.
שאם הוא יחדש את הירי, אנחנו לא נסבול טפטופים על שום חלק של מדינת ישראל. ומה שהגבנו עכשיו, נגיב עוד יותר חזק.
Ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, it's calm and peaceful day. In this ceasefire, the Palestinian people were granted the right to enter the 300 meters buffer zone that they were banned from entering it before. However, there is an incident that happened today. A group of Palestinians and youth were walking close inside the buffer zone, close to the separation wall. However, the Israeli soldiers, the Israeli side fired in the air, warning them to get back. They got back, but the Israeli side reported that the Palestinians were throwing stones towards the Israeli soldiers. However, the Palestinian side denied such thing and said that they were only walking inside the 300 meters buffer zone. However, the most hurtful thing in the Gaza Strip in these days is to go to the UN schools and to the Shifa hospital and find families that fled their homes in previous weeks are still staying in their shelters, and the reason why is because they lost their homes. They have nowhere else to go, and this issue remains one of the strongest, most hurtful issues that the Palestinian people will have to fix with the help of the international community as soon as they can, just so they can offer these families a new shelter or a new home.
And thanks again to Nor. 3 years ago, an innovative Venezuelan program relocated families impacted by devastating landslides. This successful project became a model for a new type of urban development. To explain, here's our correspondent Rachel Boothroyd.
It may only be a half-hour drive from the urban jungle known as Caracas, but up here in the Sierra surrounding the Venezuelan capital, there is a different kind of atmosphere in the air which pervades these high-rise buildings. Known at one point as the Walk of the Indigenous or the Pathway to the Sky by the Spanish, this area now goes by the name of Caribia, one of Venezuela's new and most emblematic socialist cities, which this week celebrated its third birthday.
Es una ciudad que queremos que sea endógena.
It's a city that we want to be indigenous, where we consume what is produced and cultivated here. We want it to be ecological, self-sustainable and self-governed.
Autosustentable, autogestionable.
Like Yandis, the majority of citizens who live in the city came here after losing their houses to heavy rains and mudslides, which swept the coastal state of Vargas in 2010.
One of the aspects of living here which I like the most is the fact it's residential zone. There are recreational opportunities for the children. They can go out, they're safe, they can ride their bikes, there are parks.
For many residents, the past 3 years have seen the city slowly beginning to find its feet as a community. They say that what they've built together since 2011 is a microcosm of a society in transformation, with 8 communal councils and local cooperatives run and owned by the community currently up and running in the city.
Of course, there is still a long way to go, but it is possible to live in socialism because it's a way of living amongst brothers. It's a better way of living.
With many new homes beginning to take shape on the horizon and a plan to create a productive zone dedicated to scientific development, Caribia looks set to welcome many more citizens into its community. In the meantime, it stands as an example of what life could begin to look like in Venezuela over coming decades. Rachel Boothroyd, Telesur, Caracas, Venezuela.
And thanks to Rachel. The Sao Paulo Forum continues in Bolivia today. The annual conference is a gathering of left-wing parties from Latin America and the Caribbean. Youth participants met on Wednesday and agreed to increase political awareness among young people. They also hope to strengthen those social and political movements that have made profound structural changes in the continent. Forums for women's movements and groups representing African descendants will meet today. The conference wraps up on Friday. Thousands of teachers are on strike in Paraguay this week, demanding an increase to the country's education budget and their salaries. Paraguay invests little in education yearly in comparison with other countries in the region. This year's budget just dedicates 10% of public funds to education. Union reps say that is not sufficient to cover basic educational necessities. Protesters claim only one quarter of Paraguay schools have sufficient resources. The Chilean armed forces are widely considered one of the most conservative in the region, with machismo sentiments running high. It makes for an intimidating environment for non-heterosexuals. Despite that, one sailor has made history by becoming the first openly gay member of Chile's armed forces.
Mauricio Ruiz has become the first member of the Chilean armed forces to publicly come out as gay.
I believe that it was out of self-respect that I decided to inform the Navy about my sexual condition.
Chile has no legal recognition of same-sex couples, and its armed forces, responsible for a brutal right-wing regime in the 1970s and 80s, is widely considered to be one of the most reactionary in the region. However, since a young man was beaten and tortured to death in 2012, an anti-discrimination law was passed and the society has become more aware.
Unverified video from Syria claims to show Islamic State combatants executing dozens of captured Syrian soldiers. It follows a United Nations report listing numerous atrocities committed by the group. The extremists claim they killed 250 captured soldiers following an attack on a Syrian airbase. Meanwhile, U.S. officials say that up to 100 U.S. citizens could be fighting in Syria with groups targeting the Syrian government. The revelation follows the death of 2 Americans in a gun battle in Syria this week. U.S. President Barack Obama will meet his top national security advisors today to discuss ongoing operations against the Islamic State in Iraq. The group may also consider new attacks in Syria. Iraqi and Kurdish forces have launched a multi-pronged attack on Islamic State fighters around the town of Sadidia. The U.S. hopes to stem the advance of the al-Qaeda offshoot in Iraq. With elections looming for FIFA's top position, the main opponent to the current president has bowed out of the race. UEFA president and French soccer legend Michel Platini ruled himself out of the running for the most powerful job in soccer this Thursday. Platini had been rumored to be a frontrunner to run against Sepp Blatter after the European soccer chief said FIFA needed a new president. Blatter will be seeking his 5th term despite being at the center of controversy over management of the World Cup, as well as allegations of corruption in the 2022 Qatar bid and rigging of the games by referees during the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. The election will take place in May of 2015. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle.